The stars looked different from the command deck of the Zephyrian flagship. Admiral Corax stood with his 6 arms crossed behind his back, watching the endless void through the massive viewing screen. His purple skin gleamed under the bridge. Lights as he counted the ships in his fleet. 50,000 warships stretched as far as his eyes could see. Each ship carried enough firepower to destroy a small moon. This was the largest military force the galaxy had ever witnessed. Corax had spent 3 years planning this invasion. The Zephyrian Empire controlled most of the Outer Rim territories, but they wanted more. Intelligence reports from their scouts had revealed a new species called humans. These creatures had recently developed faster-than-light travel and had begun establishing colonies in what the Empire considered their rightful territory. The reports described humans as a primitive species with weak technology and small numbers. Admiral's tactical officer approached with careful steps. Lieutenant Vex was young for a Zephyrian, only 200 years old, but he showed promise. His green eyes reflected the light from his data pad as he delivered his report. The fleet was ready to move. All ships had completed their final systems checks. The weapons were charged, and the shields were at maximum power. Corax nodded slowly. He had fought many battles in his 800 years of life. He had conquered 17 different species for the Empire. None of them had put up much resistance once they saw the size of his fleets. These humans would be no different. The intelligence reports suggested they had fewer than 300 ships in their entire military. Most of those were exploration, vessels with light weapons. This would be over quickly. Meanwhile, in a different part of space, Captain Jake Morrison walked through the corridors of the HSS Discovery. The research vessel was much smaller than the alien warships, but it was home to 43 crew members who had volunteered for deep space exploration. Jake had been commanding research missions for 12 years. He preferred the quiet work of mapping new star systems to the politics of military service. The Discovery was conducting routine surveys near the edge of human space. They were looking for planets that might support human colonies in the future. The work was slow but important. Each new world they found could become home to millions of people someday. Jake took pride in this mission, even though it rarely brought excitement. Navigator Lisa Carter sat at her station on the bridge, reviewing stellar charts. She had joined the crew 6 months ago after graduating from the Space Navigation Academy. Her blonde hair was tied back in a practical ponytail as she worked. Lisa enjoyed the mathematical precision required for deep space navigation. Every calculation had to be perfect, or the ship could end up light years from their intended destination. Chief Engineer Ben Wright was in the engine room, as usual. He spent most of his time making sure the Discovery systems ran smoothly. Ben had gray hair and kind eyes that reflected his 20 years of experience keeping ships operational. He could fix almost anything with the right tools and enough time. The crew trusted him completely to keep them safe in the dangerous emptiness of space. Communications. Officer Amy Phillips monitored the various radio frequencies that ships used to stay in contact across vast distances. She was responsible for maintaining contact with Earth and reporting any unusual discoveries. Amy had dark hair and a serious expression that matched her careful attention to detail. Nothing escaped her notice when it came to communication signals. The Discovery had been scanning a promising star system for 3 days when Amy detected something unusual. Her equipment picked up energy signatures that did not match any known human technology. The signals were massive, suggesting a fleet of enormous size. Amy called Captain Morrison to the bridge immediately. Jake looked at the readings with growing concern. The energy signatures were moving toward human space at high speed. The size of the fleet was beyond anything humans had ever encountered. He ordered Lisa to calculate the exact trajectory of the approaching ships. The results were worse than he had feared. The alien fleet was heading directly for the human colonies in the Terran defense zone. Ben joined them on the bridge after. Amy called him from engineering. He studied the sensor data with expert eyes. The alien ships were using technology that was far more advanced than anything humans possessed. Their engines produced energy readings that were 10 times more powerful than the Discovery's main reactor. Each ship in the fleet was larger than the biggest human vessels. Jake made the decision quickly. They needed to warn Earth about this threat. Amy began sending priority messages to every human ship and station within range. The messages contained all the sensor data they had collected about the alien fleet. Jake hoped the information would reach Admiral Helen Torres at Earth Defense Command before it was too late. The first response came from a human patrol ship called the Guardian. Captain Nick Evans acknowledged receiving their warning. His ship was much closer to the approaching alien fleet than the Discovery. Nick reported that he could see the enemy ships on his long-range sensors. The sight was terrifying. There were more alien vessels than anyone had imagined possible. Within hours, the alien scouts reached the outer edge of human space. They encountered 3 human patrol ships that were conducting routine security sweeps. The human ships tried to retreat when they realized how badly they were outnumbered, but the alien vessels were faster. The battle was over in minutes. All 3 human ships were destroyed without causing any damage to their attackers. Admiral Corax received the battle reports with satisfaction. His scouts had encountered the first human resistance and had eliminated it easily. The enemy ships had been poorly armed, and their shields had provided almost no protection. This confirmed what his intelligence reports had suggested. Humans were a weak species that would not be able to resist his invasion force. The Admiral ordered his fleet to increase speed. They would reach the main human colonies within 2 days. He wanted to complete the conquest quickly and return to Zephyrian space with news of his victory. The Empire would reward him greatly for adding human territory to their domain. Perhaps they would even give him control of the new systems as his personal reward. Back on Earth, Admiral Helen Torres received the warning messages from the Discovery. She had been expecting something like this for months. Human expansion into space had been rapid, and it was only a matter of time before they encountered hostile alien species. However, she had not expected to face a fleet of 50,000 ships. Helen called an emergency meeting of the Military Council. General Rick Martinez arrived within the hour, along with the other senior officers responsible for Earth's defense. They studied the sensor data from the Discovery with growing alarm. The alien fleet was larger than their entire human military combined. Earth's total defense force consisted of only 200 ships, and most of those were designed for exploration. Rather than combat, General Martinez suggested beginning immediate evacuation procedures for the outer colonies. There were 15 human settlements in the path of the alien invasion. Each colony had between 10,000 and 50,000 residents. Moving that many people would require every available transport ship and would take weeks to complete. Admiral Torres rejected the evacuation plan. She refused to abandon the colonists who had risked everything to build new lives on distant worlds. There had to be another solution. She ordered all available ships to form defensive positions around the most important colonies. If they were going to fight, they would make the aliens pay for every system they took. The news of the approaching invasion spread quickly through human space. Colony administrators began preparing their defenses, while civilians tried to remain calm. Everyone knew that humanity's survival depended on the next few days. The galaxy's strongest fleet was coming, and there seemed to be no way to stop them. The colony of New Denver sat quietly in orbit around a blue star, unaware that death was approaching. Administrator Kate Johnson had received the warning from Earth Defense Command 3 hours ago. The alien fleet would arrive at their location. within 6 hours. She had immediately begun evacuation procedures, but there was not enough time to save everyone. New Denver was home to 35,000 colonists who had spent years building farms and cities on the planet's surface. They had chosen this world because it was peaceful and far from the conflicts that sometimes troubled the inner systems. Now that distance meant rescue ships could not reach them in time. Kate stood in the colony's command center, watching as transport ships loaded desperate families. Children cried as they were separated from their homes. Adults tried to remain calm while packing only the most essential belongings. Everyone knew they might never see New Denver again. The alien invasion would likely destroy everything they had built. The colony's small defense force consisted of 6 patrol ships and an orbital station with light weapons. Captain Dan Roberts commanded the defenders with grim determination. He knew his ships could not stop 50,000 alien warships, but he would try to buy time for the evacuation transports. His pilots were volunteers who had chosen to stay behind while their families fled to safety. High above the planet, space began to ripple with strange energy. The massive alien fleet dropped out of hyperspace in perfect formation. Admiral Corax's flagship led the way, followed by countless vessels that blocked out the stars. The sight was overwhelming. Each alien ship was larger than New Denver's orbital station, and there were thousands of them. Admiral Corax studied the human colony through his ship's sensors. The planet looked vulnerable and poorly defended. A few small ships were leaving the surface, probably carrying refugees. The humans were already running away before the battle had even begun. This would be easier than he had expected. The Zephyrian admiral opened a communication channel to the human colony. His voice carried the authority of someone who had conquered many worlds. He demanded immediate surrender from all human forces. Any resistance would result in the complete destruction of the colony and everyone in it. The humans had 5 minutes to respond. Kate Johnson received the alien message with shaking hands. She looked around the command center at her staff, who were all staring at her with hope and fear. She could surrender and hope the aliens would spare some lives, or she could refuse and watch her people die fighting for their freedom. Neither choice seemed right. Before Kate could respond to the alien ultimatum, something impossible happened. Space near the colony began to glow with soft blue light. The light grew brighter until it was painful to look at directly. Then a single ship emerged from hyperspace between the alien fleet and New Denver. The mysterious vessel was unlike anything in the human fleet databases. It was sleek and dark, with smooth curves that seemed to bend light around them. Energy patterns danced across its hull in colors that had no names. The ship was much smaller than the alien dreadnoughts, but something about it made the space around it feel dangerous. Captain Steve Collins sat in the command chair of the HSS Vengeance, studying the tactical situation with calm eyes. His ship had been patrolling the edge of human space when they received the emergency signals. The Vengeance was not officially part of Earth's military fleet. It belonged to a special program that most people did not know existed. Steve had been commanding the Vengeance for 7 years. His crew consisted of 12 specialists who had been selected for their unique skills and absolute discretion. None of them appeared in standard military records. Their ship did not appear in any fleet databases. They operated in the shadows, protecting humanity from threats that required special solutions. The alien fleet detected the arrival of the human warship immediately. Admiral Corax laughed when he saw the sensor readings. A single small ship had appeared to challenge his entire invasion force. The humans were either incredibly brave or completely insane. Either way, they would be destroyed quickly. Corax ordered his tactical officer to scan the human vessel. The readings were confusing. The ship's energy signature did not match any known technology. Its hull appeared to be made from materials that their sensors could not identify. Most strange of all, the ship seemed to be generating its own gravity field that was stronger than the planet below. On New Denver, Kate Johnson watched the confrontation with amazement. A mysterious human ship had positioned itself directly between the colony and the alien fleet. It was a gesture of protection, but it seemed like suicide. One ship against 50,000 was not a battle. It was mass murder. Captain Collins opened a communication channel to both the alien fleet and the human colony. His voice was steady and confident as he identified his vessel. The HS Vengeance was here to protect human civilians from unauthorized military action. He requested that the alien commander withdraw his forces beyond the system's outer boundary. Admiral Corax could not believe what he was hearing. A single human was ordering him to retreat. The alien commander had destroyed entire civilizations, with fleets much smaller than his current force. No one had ever dared to speak to him with such disrespect. He would make this human pay for his arrogance. The Zephyrian admiral opened a direct channel to the human captain. His voice carried 800 years of military authority as he explained exactly what would happen next. The human ship would be destroyed along with the colony it was trying to protect. Every human in the system would die as punishment for their defiance. Captain Collins listened to the alien threats without emotion. He had heard similar words from other species who had underestimated humanity's capabilities. They all made the same mistake of assuming that size and numbers were the only things that mattered in warfare. The Vengeance had been built to prove them wrong. Steve activated his ship's internal communication system. He informed his crew that they were about to engage a large enemy force. Each crew member acknowledged their readiness for combat. They had trained for this moment for years. The Vengeance was about to demonstrate why humanity deserved respect from other species. The mysterious human captain returned his attention to Admiral Corax. Steve's voice remained calm as he provided the alien commander with precise coordinates. These marked the boundary beyond which the invasion fleet needed to withdraw. If the aliens crossed that line, they would be considered hostile and would be dealt with accordingly. Admiral Corax studied the coordinates with disbelief. The human was drawing a line in space and threatening to defend it with a single ship. The Zephyrian fleet could destroy entire star systems, but this human acted as if he had the superior force. It was either madness or the greatest bluff in galactic history. The alien admiral decided to call the human's bluff. He ordered his fleet to advance beyond the coordinates that Captain Collins had provided. 50,000 warships began moving forward in perfect formation. Their weapons were charged and ready to fire. The invasion of human space would continue. As planned. Captain Collins watched the alien fleet cross his warning line without any change in expression. He had given them a chance to avoid conflict, but they had chosen violence instead. Steve activated a timer on his command console. The aliens had exactly 240 seconds to reconsider their decision. On the Discovery, Captain Jake Morrison watched the confrontation through long-range sensors. He could not understand what the mysterious human ship was trying to accomplish. The vessel was impossibly outnumbered and would be destroyed the moment the aliens decided to fire. Yet something about the situation felt different from other hopeless battles he had witnessed. Navigator Lisa Carter ran continuous scans of the unknown human vessel. Her instruments were producing readings that made no scientific sense. The ship's energy output was fluctuating in patterns that seemed to violate basic physics. Whatever technology the Vengeance was using, it was beyond anything she had studied at the Academy. Chief Engineer Ben Wright joined Lisa at the sensor station. His experienced eyes studied the impossible readings with growing amazement. The mysterious ship was generating energy fields that should have torn it apart. Instead, the vessel remained perfectly stable while space around it began to bend in strange ways. Admiral Korax grew tired of waiting for the human ship to surrender or flee. He ordered his tactical officer to target the vessel and prepare to fire. One shot from his flagship's main weapon would be enough to vaporize the small human ship. Then he could continue with the invasion without further delay. The alien fleet began charging their weapon systems. Energy readings spiked across 50,000 ships as they prepared to destroy the HSS Vengeance. The combined firepower was enough to crack a planet's crust. No single ship could survive what was about to be unleashed against it. Captain Collins watched his timer count down with the patience of someone who had seen this scenario before. The aliens were about to learn an important lesson about underestimating humanity. The Vengeance had been built specifically to deal with threats that conventional weapons could not handle. 120 seconds remained on the countdown. Captain Steve Collins placed his hand on a control panel that did not exist in any standard human ship design. The surface was smooth and warm, responding to his touch with patterns of light that danced beneath his fingers. Systems throughout the HSS Vengeance began activating in sequence, each one drawing power from sources that defied conventional understanding of physics. The ship's chief science officer, Dr. Paul Adams, monitored the activation sequence from his station on the Discovery. His instruments were struggling to make sense of what they were detecting. Energy readings from the mysterious human vessel were climbing to levels that should have been impossible for a ship of its size. The patterns made no sense, according to everything he had learned about spacecraft design. Paul had spent 15 years studying advanced propulsion systems and exotic energy sources. He had written papers on theoretical physics that pushed the boundaries of human knowledge. Yet the readings from the Vengeance suggested technology that was decades beyond anything he thought possible. The ship was somehow drawing power from space itself. Admiral Korax watched his tactical displays with growing irritation. The human vessel was doing something to the local space around it. Sensor readings from his fleet were becoming distorted. Several ships reported that their targeting systems were having difficulty maintaining locks on the small human ship. The vessel seemed to be surrounded by some kind of interference field. The Zephyrian admiral had encountered defensive technologies before. Many species developed shields and armor to protect their ships from enemy fire. However, none of them had ever created anything like what he was seeing now. The human ship appeared to be altering the fundamental properties of space in its immediate vicinity. Lieutenant Vex approached the admiral with a concerned expression. The young officer had been monitoring communications from the fleet's science vessels. Their analysis teams were reporting readings that contradicted basic physics. Several scientists were requesting permission to study the human ship rather than destroy it. They believed it represented a revolutionary breakthrough in technology. Korax dismissed the scientists' concerns with an angry gesture. He was a military commander, not a researcher. His job was to conquer human space and eliminate any resistance. The strange readings from the enemy vessel were probably just sensor malfunctions caused by unknown materials in its hull construction. Once his weapons destroyed the ship, the mystery would be solved. Captain Collins checked his countdown timer. 180 seconds remained. He activated the Vengeance's primary weapon system, though calling it a weapon was not entirely accurate. The technology was based on principles that human scientists had discovered only recently. It could manipulate matter and energy at the quantum level, creating effects that appeared magical to observers. The weapon system drew power from the same source that powered the ship's other impossible systems. Deep within the Vengeance's hull, machines worked with forces that existed between dimensions. They reached into spaces that were folded away from normal reality and extracted energy that had been waiting there since the universe began. On New Denver, Administrator Kate Johnson watched the confrontation through the colony's sensors. The evacuation was proceeding as quickly as possible, with thousands of people were still on the planet's surface. She had sent messages to Earth requesting emergency assistance, but help was too far away to arrive in time. Everything depended on the mysterious human warship. Kate had served in the colonial administration for 8 years. She had dealt with equipment failures, supply shortages, and natural disasters. However, she had never faced anything like an alien invasion. The responsibility for 35,000 lives weighed heavily on her shoulders as she watched the impossible standoff in space above her world. The first shot came without warning. Captain Collins selected the largest Zephyrian vessel in the enemy formation and activated his weapon system. A beam of pure energy lanced across space, moving faster than light itself. The beam did not follow normal rules of physics as it traveled toward its target. Instead, it seemed to take shortcuts through space that should not have existed. Admiral Corax's flagship detected the incoming energy beam and automatically raised its shields. The defensive systems were the most advanced the Zephyrian Empire had ever developed. They could stop planet-killing weapons and deflect the focused energy of entire star systems. The shields had never failed in 800 years of warfare. The human weapons struck the alien flagship with perfect precision. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. The massive dreadnought continued on its course, apparently undamaged. Admiral Corax began to laugh at the weakness of human technology. Then the ship's shields began to fail in patterns that made no sense. The energy beam passed through the Zephyrian shields as if they were not there. It struck the hull of the flagship and began converting the ship's matter into pure energy. The process was silent and almost gentle, but it was also unstoppable. Within seconds, the massive vessel simply ceased to exist. There was no explosion, no debris field, no trace that it had ever been there. Lieutenant Vex stared at the empty space where the flagship had been floating moments before. His instruments showed no wreckage, no energy signature, nothing at all. The most powerful ship in the Zephyrian fleet had been completely removed from existence by a single shot from the small human vessel. It was impossible, but he had witnessed it happen. The alien fleet froze in shock. 50,000 captains tried to understand what they had just seen. Their sensors confirmed that the flagship was gone, but they could not explain how it had happened. The human weapon had used principles of physics that were unknown to Zephyrian science. Admiral Corax found himself in command of the second flagship, having been transferred there by emergency protocols when his original ship was destroyed. The experience was disorienting and terrifying. He had never lost a ship to enemy fire, let alone watched one disappear completely. The human vessel had demonstrated power that exceeded anything in his experience. Captain Collins checked his timer. Again, 120 seconds remained. He opened a communication channel to the alien fleet, his voice remaining calm despite what he had just accomplished. The demonstration had been a warning shot designed to show the aliens what they were truly facing. He offered them one final opportunity to withdraw from human space. Dr. Paul Adams frantically worked at his sensor station, trying to understand what he had witnessed. The energy beam from the Vengeance had somehow erased matter from existence, without releasing the energy that should have been contained within it. The process violated conservation laws that were fundamental to physics. Paul's instruments had recorded every detail of the weapon's firing sequence, but the data made no sense. The beam had appeared to fold space around itself, creating a tunnel that connected the human ship directly to its target. The technology suggested an understanding of quantum mechanics that was far beyond human science. Chief Engineer Ben Wright joined Paul at the science station. His practical experience with ship systems gave him a different perspective on what they had seen. The Vengeance was not just using advanced weapons. It was operating with technology that seemed to break the rules of reality itself. The ship was doing things that should have been impossible. Admiral Corax tried to regain control of his fleet. He ordered all ships to maintain formation and prepare for combat. The loss of one vessel, even the flagship, was not enough to stop the invasion. His remaining ships still outnumbered the human vessel by thousands to one. Surely they could overwhelm whatever strange weapon it was using. The Zephyrian Admiral's orders were met with hesitation from his captains. Many of them had served under his command for decades and had never questioned his judgment. However, they had also never seen technology like what the human ship possessed. Several captains requested clarification of their orders and asked for more information about the enemy weapon. Corax grew angry at the delay in his orders being followed. He had spent his entire career building a reputation for decisive action and overwhelming force. His fleets had conquered 17 different species without suffering significant losses. He would not allow a single human ship to change that record, no matter what impossible weapons it carried. The Admiral ordered his entire fleet to begin charging their weapons. 50,000 ships would fire simultaneously at the human vessel. Even if their enemy could somehow destroy individual ships, it could not possibly handle the combined firepower of the entire invasion force. The human ship would be vaporized. Instantly, Captain Collins watched the energy build up throughout the alien fleet with professional interest. The Zephyrians were preparing to unleash enough firepower to destroy several planets. It was an impressive display of conventional military might. Unfortunately for them, the Vengeance had been designed to handle threats exactly like this one. Steve activated his ship's defensive systems. Unlike the weapons, the defenses were based on technology that human scientists understood somewhat better. The ship generated fields that could redirect energy and matter around itself, creating a zone where normal physics were temporarily suspended. Anything entering that zone would be harmlessly deflected away. Admiral Corax stared at his tactical display in complete disbelief. The combined firepower of 50,000 warships had struck the human vessel directly, yet the small ship remained perfectly intact. Not only had it survived the massive attack, but his sensors showed no damage whatsoever. The energy that should have vaporized the enemy had simply vanished into space that the alien commander's mind struggled to process what he had witnessed. In 800 years of military service, he had never encountered defensive technology that could completely absorb such a massive energy discharge. The human ship had not even moved from its position. It floated in space as if nothing had happened, while his entire fleet sat stunned by the failure of their attack. Lieutenant Vex approached with trembling hands, holding a damage report. The young officer's voice shook as he delivered news that should have been impossible. Several Zephyrian ships had been damaged by their own weapons' fire. The energy they had directed at the human vessel had somehow been reflected back at them. 3 ships were reporting hull breaches and 2 had lost main power. Captain Steve Collins checked his countdown timer one final time. The display showed 15 seconds remaining. He had given the alien fleet multiple opportunities to withdraw from human space. They had chosen to continue their aggressive actions, despite clear demonstrations of the Vengeance's capabilities. Now they would face the consequences of that decision. Steve activated his ship's primary weapons array. Unlike the single demonstration shot he had fired earlier, this time he was preparing to engage the entire enemy fleet. The weapon system drew massive amounts of power from the ship's exotic energy source. Reality began to bend around the Vengeance. As forces beyond normal physics prepared to be unleashed, Dr. Paul Adams watched his instruments with fascination and terror. The energy readings from the mysterious human ship were climbing to levels that his equipment could barely measure. Whatever the Vengeance was about to do, it would require power equivalent to a small star. The technology was so far beyond current human science that it seemed like magic. The countdown reached 0. Captain Collins targeted multiple enemy vessels simultaneously and fired. Dozens of energy beams lanced out from the Vengeance, each one following the same impossible physics. As the first shot, the beams moved faster than light and ignored the normal rules of space and time as they saw it. Their targets throughout the alien fleet. Each beam struck a different Zephyrian warship with perfect accuracy. The alien vessels had no time to react or attempt to defend themselves. One moment they were part of a massive invasion force. The next moment they simply ceased to exist. Like the flagship before them, the targeted ships were completely erased from reality without leaving any trace behind. Admiral Corax watched in horror as hundreds of his ships vanished in the space of a few seconds. His fleet, which had seemed invincible moments before, was being systematically destroyed by weapons that operated beyond his understanding. The human vessel was eliminating his forces faster than his mind could comprehend. What was happening? The Zephyrian admiral tried to regain control of the situation by ordering his remaining ships to scatter and retreat. However, the HSS Vengeance was already moving to intercept the fleeing vessels. A ship's movement defied physics just as much as its weapons did. It appeared to teleport from one location to another, cutting off escape routes with impossible speed. Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the Discovery, watching the tactical display with amazement. His instruments were tracking the Vengeance as it moved through the alien fleet like a ghost. The mysterious ship seemed to be in multiple locations at once, appearing wherever fleeing enemy vessels tried to escape. Navigator Lisa Carter tried to plot the Vengeance's movement patterns, but her calculations made no sense. The ship was covering distances that should have required several minutes of travel time, yet it was arriving at each new position instantly. The technology was rewriting everything she had learned about space travel and physics. Chief Engineer Ben Wright shook his head in wonder as he watched the impossible battle unfold. His engineering experience told him that what he was seeing could not be real, yet his instruments confirmed every detail. The Vengeance was operating with technology that was decades or centuries beyond anything humanity had previously developed. Back on New Denver, Administrator Kate Johnson watched the one-sided battle through the colony's sensors. The massive alien fleet that had threatened to destroy her world was being eliminated by a single human ship. Vessels that had seemed invincible were disappearing one by one as the mysterious warship hunted them down with methodical precision. Kate had ordered the evacuation to continue despite the dramatic turn of events. She could not be certain that the Vengeance would be able to destroy every enemy ship, and she would not risk civilian lives on hope alone. However, she began to believe that her people might actually survive the day. Lieutenant Sam Hughes monitored the tactical display on the Discovery with growing excitement. The alien fleet that had seemed unstoppable was being systematically eliminated. Each enemy ship that tried to flee was intercepted and destroyed before it could escape the system. The Vengeance was hunting with the efficiency of a predator that had evolved specifically for this purpose. Admiral Corax realized that his invasion force was doomed. The human ship was destroying his vessels faster than he could count them. His remaining captains were sending panic-stricken messages requesting orders, but he had no strategy that could counter weapons that ignored the laws of physics. The Zephyrian admiral made the hardest decision of his military career. He ordered all remaining ships to surrender and await capture by human forces. It was a humiliating end to what should have been his greatest victory, but continuing to fight would only result in the complete destruction of his fleet. Captain Collins received the alien surrender request, but did not respond. The Vengeance had been sent to eliminate a threat to human colonies, and that mission would be completed regardless of enemy attempts to negotiate. The invasion fleet had crossed into human space with hostile intent, and they would face the consequences of that action. The systematic destruction continued without pause. Groups of alien ships tried to band together for mutual protection, but Vengeance's weapons could target multiple vessels simultaneously. No formation or defensive strategy could protect them from beams that passed through shields and armor, as if they did not exist. Dr. Paul Adams attempted to count how many enemy ships had been destroyed, but the number was climbing too quickly for him to track. His instruments suggested that thousands of vessels had already been eliminated. The alien fleet was being reduced from an invasion force to scattered groups of survivors in a matter of minutes. Some Zephyrian captains attempted to hide their ships behind asteroids or used the planet's gravity well to mask their energy signatures. However, the Vengeance seemed to have sensors that could detect targets regardless of what obstacles lay between them. No hiding place was effective against the mysterious human ship. Admiral Corax found himself commanding fewer than 1,000 ships from what had been the largest military force in galactic history. The remaining vessels were scattered throughout the system, desperately trying to find some way to escape the relentless human hunter. Many captains had stopped following orders and were simply fleeing in random directions. The Zephyrian Admiral watched his life's work crumble as the last of his command ships was targeted for destruction. The beam from the human weapon struck his vessel with the same gentle precision that had eliminated thousands of others. Admiral Corax had time for one final thought about the arrogance that had led him to underestimate humanity. Before his ship joined the others in non-existence, Captain Collins methodically eliminated the final groups of enemy vessels. The Vengeance moved through space with the patience of someone who had performed this task many times before. Each remaining alien ship was located, targeted, and destroyed with efficient precision that left no room for escape or survival. Discovery sensors tracked the elimination of the last Zephyrian warship. Lieutenant Sam Hughes confirmed that no enemy vessels remained in the system. The invasion fleet that had numbered 50,000 ships had been completely destroyed in exactly 4 minutes. The HS Vengeance floated alone in space where moments before the galaxy's largest military force had assembled. Captain Jake Morrison tried to comprehend what his crew had witnessed. An entire invasion fleet had been eliminated by a single human ship using technology that seemed to operate outside the normal rules of physics. The implications for humanity's place in the galaxy were staggering. On New Denver, Administrator Kate Johnson received confirmation that the alien threat had been eliminated. The evacuation could be halted and her people could return to their homes. The colony had been saved by the intervention of a mysterious human warship that had appeared from nowhere and demonstrated power beyond imagination. The HSS Vengeance turned toward the edge of the system, its mission completed. Captain Collins prepared to depart, but first he opened a communication channel to Admiral Torres on Earth. His calm voice reported that the threat to human colonies had been neutralized and that normal operations could resume. The 242nd war was over. The silence in space was deafening. Where 50,000 alien warships had formed the largest invasion fleet in galactic history, there was now nothing but empty void dotted with distant stars. The HSS Vengeance floated alone in the darkness, its hull reflecting starlight as if nothing extraordinary had happened. 4 minutes had passed since the battle began, and the entire Zephyrian Empire's military might had been erased from existence. Captain Steve Collins sat in his command chair, reviewing the tactical reports with the same calm expression he had maintained throughout the engagement. His crew worked quietly at their stations, completing post-battle procedures with the efficiency of professionals who had performed similar tasks before. The destruction of an entire invasion fleet was, for them, simply another successful mission. On Earth, Admiral Helen Torres received Captain Collins' report through the quantum communication network. Her hands trembled slightly as she read the impossible words on her screen. The alien fleet had been completely destroyed with no human casualties. The threat to the outer colonies had been eliminated in less than 5 minutes by a single ship that did not officially exist in our fleet records. Helen had been commanding Earth's defenses for 15 years. She had planned for many different scenarios involving hostile alien contact, but none of her strategies had involved mysterious human vessels with impossible weapons. The existence of the Vengeance raised questions about humanity's true military capabilities that she was not certain she wanted answered. The Admiral activated her secure communication system and sent priority messages to the Joint Chiefs of Staff. The military leadership needed to know that Earth possessed weapons technology far beyond what they had believed possible. The implications for defense planning and interstellar diplomacy were enormous. Other alien species would need to be informed that humanity was not the weak civilization they appeared to be. Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the Discovery, staring at sensor readings that his mind struggled to process. The space around New Denver showed no trace of the massive battle that had just concluded. His instruments detected no wreckage, no energy signatures, no evidence that 50,000 ships had been destroyed. It was as if the alien fleet had never existed. Dr. Paul Adams worked frantically at his science station, trying to make sense of the data his instruments had recorded. The energy readings from the Vengeance during the battle showed patterns that violated fundamental laws of physics. The ship had somehow manipulated matter and energy at the quantum level to achieve effects that should have been impossible. Navigator Lisa Carter attempted to calculate how much energy would have been required to destroy the alien fleet using conventional weapons. Her results showed that humanity would have needed to harness the power of an entire star to achieve what the Vengeance had accomplished in 4 minutes. The mysterious ship was operating with technology that was beyond her ability to understand. Chief Engineer Ben Wright examined the detailed scans his equipment had taken of the Vengeance during the battle. The ship's hull showed no signs of damage despite absorbing the combined firepower of 50,000 alien vessels. More disturbing were the readings that suggested the ship had somehow existed in multiple locations simultaneously during parts of the engagement. On New Denver, Administrator Kate Johnson canceled the evacuation procedures and began organizing the return of civilians to the planet's surface. The immediate crisis was over, but she knew that everything had changed. Humanity had revealed the existence of military technology that would alter their relationships with every other species in the galaxy. Kate opened a communication channel to Captain Collins, intending to thank him for saving her colony. However, the HSS Vengeance did not respond to her signals. The mysterious ship seemed to be preparing to depart, and its captain apparently had no interest in discussing what had just occurred. The vessel that had appeared from nowhere to save them was already fading back into mystery. Captain Collins received new orders through channels that did not appear on any standard military communication network. His mission at New Denver was complete, but other situations required his attention. The Vengeance had revealed its capabilities to protect human colonies, and that revelation would have consequences throughout the galaxy. Steve activated his ship's advanced propulsion systems. The Vengeance began to glow with the same blue light that had announced its arrival. Space around the vessel started to bend and fold as the ship prepared to enter hyperspace using technology that operated beyond conventional physics. Within seconds, the mysterious warship vanished from normal space, leaving behind only questions. Dr. Paul Adams watched the Vengeance disappear with instruments that recorded every detail of its departure. The ship had somehow folded space around itself to create a tunnel through dimensions that existed beyond normal reality. The technology suggested an understanding of theoretical physics that was centuries ahead of current human knowledge. Captain Morrison began composing his official report on the battle, but he realized that no one would believe what he described. A single human ship had destroyed 50,000 alien vessels in 4 minutes using weapons that seemed to operate like magic. The story sounded like science fiction rather than military history. Jake decided to focus his report on the facts that could be verified. The alien invasion had been repelled with no human casualties. The colony of New Denver was safe. The identity and capabilities of the defending vessel remained classified above his security clearance. Those simple facts would have to be enough for the official record. Admiral Torres received communications from previously unknown organizations within Earth's government. Representatives from classified programs began arriving at her headquarters within hours of the battle's conclusion. They carried authorization codes that granted them access to information about humanity's most sensitive military projects. The visitors explained that projects like the HSS Vengeance had been in development for decades. Earth's public military was only one layer of humanity's defenses. Other programs worked with technology that was kept secret to avoid panic and to prevent other species from developing countermeasures. The Vengeance was one of several vessels that protected human interests from threats that conventional forces could not handle. Helen learned that humanity's expansion into space had not been as random as it appeared. The locations of colonies and the timing of exploration missions had been carefully planned to establish strategic positions throughout the galaxy. The apparent weakness of human military forces was a deliberate deception designed to make other species underestimate humanity's true capabilities. News of the battle began to spread through unofficial channels to other alien civilizations. The complete destruction of the Zephyrian Empire's invasion fleet could not be hidden from intelligence networks that monitored military activities throughout the galaxy. Within days, every major species knew that humanity possessed weapons technology that far exceeded their own. The political implications were immediate and far-reaching. Species that had considered humans to be primitive newcomers suddenly began treating them with careful respect. Trade negotiations that had been stalled for months were quickly resolved in humanity's favor. Several alien governments sent diplomatic messages requesting peaceful relations with Earth. Captain Morrison received orders to continue his survey mission as if nothing had happened. The discovery was to resume mapping potential colony sites while maintaining absolute secrecy about the battle they had witnessed. The crew was briefed on security protocols that carried severe penalties for unauthorized disclosure of classified information. Lieutenant Sam Hughes privately wondered how many other mysterious, serious human ships were patrolling space beyond the knowledge of regular military personnel. The existence of the Vengeance suggested that Earth's true military capabilities were far greater than anyone had imagined. Humanity might not be the underdog in galactic politics after all. On New Denver, life gradually returned to normal as colonists resumed their daily routines. However, everyone who had witnessed the battle carried the knowledge that their safety depended on guardians they had never suspected existed. The mysterious warship had appeared when needed and had disappeared just as quickly, leaving them to wonder if it was still watching from the shadows. Administrator Kate Johnson filed her official report on the invasion attempt, but large sections were immediately classified by Earth security agencies. The public record would show only that an alien fleet had been repelled by human defense forces. The true nature of those defenses would remain secret for reasons of galactic security. Deep in space, Captain Collins and the HSS Vengeance continued their patrol of human territory. Their mission was to maintain the balance of power that kept humanity safe while preventing other species from learning too much about Earth's true capabilities. The Vengeance was one of several Guardian vessels that operated in the darkness between stars, protecting human civilization from threats that most people would never know existed. The galaxy had learned an important lesson about underestimating humanity.